Okay. Today is going to be a good one, but it's going to be a short one. So, welcome back to another episode of 28 Days of Black History Month with your host, Black Nation. Today is episode 24, and we're going to be talking about Howard Thurman. So, Howard Thurman was an American author, philanthropist, minister. Oh, he was a Christian too, educator, and he was a civil rights leader. The main thing that I think people just need to know about him is that he was the main instrument for Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. took the blueprint that Howard did and he used it for himself. And from what I was reading, him and Martin Luther King never met up and talked or whatnot. I guess you would call it. They didn't do any works together. They kind of stayed separately, but Howard was the main driving force. Like the Howard blueprint is what Luther King followed, and Martin Luther King even stated some of what Howard did in some of his speeches as well. So that's really all you need to know because he was a civil rights leader. Of course, he became very influential in everything that he did. You know, becoming a minister, becoming a philanthropist, an author. An educator. Like majority of our Black history, they were activists and they were civil rights leaders. Majority of them wasn't a civil rights leader. They were more so an activist. But Howard Thurman, he just laid the blueprint for Martin Luther King, and Martin Luther King followed that and made his own rendition to it. But these are like two peas in a pod but they didn't meet each other or like talk or anything like that. So that's really all I have to say about Howard. We're going to get into some videos that'll say much more than I ever could.
He was born the grandson of slaves, yet Howard Thurman would become one of the most celebrated religious figures of the 20th century. A spiritual mentor to Martin Luther King Jr.
Whether we want it that way or not, we all tied together.
And a moral anchor for the civil rights movement.
Martin Luther King Jr. would quote Howard Thurman on many, many occasions.
I think Howard Thurman, for many leaders in that movement, King included, played the role of pastor.
In the 1930s, after an historic meeting with Mahatma Gandhi, Thurman becomes one of the early voices for nonviolent resistance, for a people who over centuries experienced unimaginable violence.
He helped to establish the philosophical framework of how to struggle.
He saw himself as a spiritual activist because he was fundamentally a teacher.
He had this combination of being kind and being strong, and I think that's a very rare combination.
While Sunday morning was often considered the most segregated hour in the week, Thurman helped pioneer a church where people of different races and religions could worship together.
He's suspicious of denomination and dogma and creed. He would never identify himself as a theologian because he thought theologians boxed God.
And he was called a mystic because he believed religious experience was best explored within.
Howard Thurman was actually practicing contemplative spirituality before we actually started calling it contemplative spirituality.
At his heart, he was a nature mystic.
Thurman is talking to trees. Trees.
Yet this mystic was also an outspoken critic of Christianity for its part in the nation's deep racial divides, and he countered with a shocking new work that offered a revolutionary new way of understanding the life of Jesus Christ and how it speaks directly to the oppressed and disinherited.
I carry the book with me, Jesus and the Disinherited, every day.
and he gives an Africanity to the interpretation of Jesus.
He provided a spiritual perspective that was empowering.
There were people encountering Thurman's work and being shaken at their core.
I would have to find out what was the word that the religion of Jesus had to say to the man with his back against the wall.
Oh, we got a little bit more, okay.
Major funding for this program was provided by Lilly Endowment.
You will find true success and happiness if you have only one goal. There really is only one, and that is this: to fulfill the highest, most truthful expression of yourself. Theologian Howard Thurman said it best. He said, "Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and then go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive."
I know he wrote some books as well.
The 1960s, and the civil rights movement is exploding across America. A century after a civil war was fought to end slavery, deeply rooted segregation.
I just had to pause it for a minute. Imagine being a historian and you get to go back and you just watch like history unfold with like so many pictures and videos. Just imagine that. It might be a job. I mean, it is a job, but it would actually be something actually remarkable that you could go back and you could just see the clothes that they wore, the videos and all that stuff. It's crazy. I do not like the Klan though.
And blatant racism are still legal in many parts of the nation. Now they're being met head on.
I may be poor, but I am.
Oh, I did a video on Jesse Jackson.
Somebody. I may be uneducated, but I am somebody.
Jesse Jackson, Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, Otis Moss Jr., Vernon Jordan, and other civil rights leaders are convinced the moment for resistance has come. And no matter how they are treated, they are committed to nonviolence.
The spirit in man is not easily vanquished. It is fragile and tough. You may fail again and again, and yet something will not let you give up. Something keeps you from accepting no as a final answer. It is this quality that makes for survival of values when the circumstances of one's life are most against decency, goodness, and right.
They were given the power and the authority to respond to the realities of injustice in ways that could be true to their faith and in ways that did not require them to compromise the integrity of who they were.
Many feel it is Howard Thurman, through his insights and early commitment to nonviolence, who evokes a spirit felt across the entire movement.
Whether we want it that way or not, we are all tied together. Every Negro in America is a little white, and every white man in America is a little Negro. The Negro needs the white man to save him from his fears, and the white man needs the Negro to save him from his guilt. We need each other.
And I just want to say this too. Back in the day, there were a lot of non-violent, like Martin Luther King, of course, Howard and all them. And it's like today's world, we got like YNs who, like, it's like the whole, it's like just the generation just went down from like, you know, we're not going to fight, we're just going to stand tall and we're going to protest, to like, we YNs, we get a switch on it and all this other dumb shit. It's like you could just see the difference, and you kind of like see the downfall, and like, you know, we like people don't have that passion like they, you know, it's like, because everything's just changed. So it goes more into like, instead of peaceful protests, well, we got guns too. Like, what's stopping us from bringing our guns out as well, you know? Even with the Black Panther Party, well, not the new one, I wouldn't say the old one.
times seemed to think that nonviolence was very endemic to the African American community as a way of life, when in fact it was not. And even Thurman is very clear that nonviolence was a kind of a cultivated experience for most rank and file people, including leadership.
I would agree that Howard Thurman was a saint of the movement.
He gave us the basis for the march, that we know why we march, the principles upon which we march, how we march, and what we do after the march.
He helped to establish the philosophical framework of how to struggle. You cannot let the oppressor break your spirit, then make him break your bones or your arms, but not your spirit. That's the stuff of Howard Thurman.
Dr. King was not completely committed to nonviolence. When I say not committed, he saw it first as a tactic until he was fully converted to it as a lifestyle. And my father helped me with that, to understand that early on, people saw things as a tactic. This is the best way. Dr. King then moves to, this is a lifestyle. And that is a direct connection to Thurman's conversion. And here is a nonviolent revolutionary.
One of the foundational works for the movement is a book by Thurman, Jesus and the Disinherited.
I have been told that Dr. King carried Jesus and the Disinherited with him most of the time when he traveled.
It's a book that really describes what it means to be involved in such a struggle as a spiritual matter, as a matter of faith, and not just the effort to change laws for the gaining of civil rights.
He says that the African Americans didn't have any rights, just like Jesus. But they could choose to ground themselves in their own inherent dignity and worth. And if one were to choose this, it would have a lot to do with how they would deal with the question of what do you do when your back is against the wall?
Isn't that the same question like, isn't that the same question as like, that's why you don't that's why you don't corner a snake? Because when your back is against the wall, the only place you can go is forward. All right.
He used to be dean of the chapel at Boston University. His name, Howard Thurman.
Religious experience is dynamic, it's fluid, it's effervescent, it's yeasty, all these words. But the mind can't handle that. So it has to imprison the religious experience in some way, get it bottled up. Then, when it gets quiet enough, it meaning the religious experience, then the mind draws a bead on it and extracts out of this ferment concepts, notions, dogmas, so that the religious experience will make sense to the mind. But meanwhile, the religious experience goes on experiencing. Therefore, whatever creed there is, whatever theology there is, it's always a little out of date. This is why I feel that once a religion is stated in terms of dogma or intellections, perhaps, then it can become the source of propaganda. It has something a handle, it can. But as long as the experience is vital, the only way that it can spread is by contagion, not by instruction, not by addressing the mind, but something you catch, as you catch the measles, for instance. That's what I mean.
When you speak like this, are you at one with people who would think this way in all traditions? You're not saying a Protestant thing.
No, it's the nature of religious experience, it seems to me, whatever kind it is.
Good days start with homemade breakfast sandwiches.
I might have to rewatch that because I kind of
Technically, so can bad days.
in and out, but
Come
I kind
on,
of understood.
how can you have a bad day after eating bacon and eggs smothered in Land O'Lakes cheese?
I'm not that dumb.
eat it like you own it.
Oh, that was it? Okay. So Howard Thurman, a scholar for sure. You know what I mean? And just the power he and Martin Luther King had. But I think that's going to be the end of today's video about Howard Thurman. For all his contributions that he did as a civil rights leader, and how him and Martin Luther King and many others paved the way for us. He deserves to be on this list on episode 24. So until tomorrow,